And we are live. Let's seed the space with some music, shall we?
All right. Okay.
Hello and good now to you. I was going to say what time it is for me, but it is a good now, and hopefully it is a good now for you. My name is Ryan Erickson. Here we are on my channel for the moment, or forever, riffing with Ryan, and with me, I have a very special guest, someone who I have become very close with over the last couple of years, and who I really feel strongly about his practice and his offering to the world of living more musically. And today we're going to explore a few things that will invite you to learn how to do that for yourself and to help others do it. And without further ado, the maestro of the keys and of complexity, Mr. Daniel Barber. Hello.
Hey, Ryan. Thanks so much for the chance to be in this conversation with you. I really appreciate it.
You're quite welcome. It's always a joy to be here with you. Would you mind just saying a moment or two about who you are, what you do for people, and then we can go into the Q&A and the exploration?
Sure. In a nutshell, basically what I do is that I help folks who kind of feel stuck and would like to shift old patterns and do things differently, but can't quite figure out how to get to that place. I help them to navigate that transition from who they are and where they are feeling stuck in, and get to the place where they'd like to be, with a method that I created that involves piano improvisation to basically navigate uncertainty with more ease and confidence.
Well, I want to hear more about that. Or I've heard a little bit about it. So the folks out there in Wonderland, let's explore a bit about that. So the frame here is how to live more musically and how you might be able to help folks do that. Based on what you said about how you help people through improvisation, what does it mean to live musically? And maybe the place to start, which actually I said beforehand, what is the opposite of living musically? So, yeah.
That's a great question. It really is a good question. What is it to be musical? What is musicality? And how can that be something that's sort of generalized to when you're not just playing music? Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I think that I love the question, what is it to not live musically? And I think a lot of times it's one of these things where when you feel it. And when you're not feeling it. It's like when we're not feeling it, we can feel really frustrated and kind of out of sorts and out of sync. It's like life is like we're fighting life, and things just aren't. It's just like, everything's a struggle and everything's frustrating, and we're just not in sync with things. And living musically is more of that space where we're accepting things as they are. We're adapting. We're using our wits well. We're feeling present. We feel we're in our bodies. We're comfortable in that. We feel comfortable in our bodies. It's this sense of being in the flow of life.
That living, right? We're talking about what it is to live, and I think Joseph Campbell thing comes up. What the adventure of being alive. Right? So this is engaging with the adventure.
Yeah.
And in the sense that I get from folks when I talk to folks who are in pain and feeling the world around them is don't feel like going on that adventure. I feel like as if I'm in the factory, and I'm working in this mechanistic world of numbers and finance and targets and goals and punching the clock and all that stuff. And that joy of living is, where is that? And the sense of meaninglessness that comes from being in this mechanical world. And so a shift, what the shift is from the mechanical. What if we were to shift it to the musical, from the mechanical to the musical? And there are some questions that you ask, and kind of a framework, if you will, of how to invite people to move from that mechanistic place and that purposeless place to a more alive and purposeful place. Where do you start with that?
Well, I have been doing this for about, I've been doing this coaching, this teaching stuff for about 10 years. And along the way, it occurred to me that there are basically 3 foundational questions that I think all living beings have to wrestle with along the way, more and less consciously. So from single-celled organisms on up, we are all having to wrestle with these 3 questions. And there's also an essential skill that I think is really vital for any of us for really dealing with reality effectively. And that essential skill is to navigate the unknown with mastery. When we can't navigate the unknown masterfully, we can find ourselves in that state of out of syncness and frustrated and running into our old habitual patterns and habits. And we keep running into the same problems over and over again. And it doesn't matter how much time we've spent in therapy or done all the self-help programs and all that, we still find ourselves playing out new versions of, like Groundhog Day. And so the way through that is to realize that we are essentially always dealing with these 3 foundational, what I call the 3 foundational questions. And the first one is, what is happening now? So, as soon as we're launched out into this physical world, we're like, what's going on, right? What's happening? What's going on around me? And that question comprises all of science and all of philosophy and all of observation of the world around us. It's always what's going on. Do I need to run from that tiger that's coming after me? Do I chase that squirrel for a meal? Do I sign up for grad school? Do I marry this person? Do I go get a peanut butter sandwich? It's just an ongoing series of what what's happening now. And then the second question is, who am I now? And so it's like, how do I fit into all of this, right? What's my place in all of this? And we have our experience of ourselves as physical beings, as thinking beings, as smelling beings, and seeing beings. We have all these different ways of assessing ourselves, and that becomes, an ongoing part of the question too. Who am I? What am I in the midst of all this? And then the third question is, what do I do now? And that's really kind of what I alluded to earlier, is like taking into account all that's going on around and who I perceive myself to be, which includes everything we've ever thought or felt or remember, or the stuff that's going on consciously and unconsciously. We do as best we can to assess all that and then make decisions about what to do. And so those are those things. Do I sign up for grad school? Do I run out? Do I get out of the street to avoid getting hit by the bus?
Yes, don't get hit by the bus, please. Please don't get hit by the bus.
It's like there's ongoing. Yeah. Some of these questions are more important than others.
Indeed, and I think this also, so the questions, so the deciding, so to go back for the deciding what what am I doing now? How am I deciding? What am I using in this identity frame? Right? Where am I? What's happening? And turning that confusion into the sense of into sense, right? To in some way take this chaos and uncertainty, and bring some sense of calm, maybe, or at least again that calm. What does that calm come from? This sense of mastery. And I when you talked about the essential skill for a second, this idea of navigating that uncertainty, the word navigate came up to me, and that what do you think from your experience with the practice and how it opened up the world for you? What got in the way? What got in the way of your navigation? And what do you offer in terms of how do I navigate? So
Well, I'll tell you a little story about that. I love that question. And what I realized after many years of wishing that I could navigate the piano improvisationally, I'll try to do a quick version of the story. I started playing piano when I was 4, and I learned classical, and I played for quite a few years. And by the time I quit when I was 11, and then I came back to it a few years later. But by the time I graduated from high school, I was pretty good. I could play some pretty complex stuff. I was playing interesting music, but I wasn't. My teacher wouldn't teach me to improvise. I really wanted to learn to improvise jazz, and he wouldn't teach me, even though he played jazz and he could do it. But there was this idea back in those days that you can't learn to improvise until you develop some unknown level of mastery of classical and playing the notes on the page. And he figured I hadn't gotten there yet. Maybe it's just because I wasn't a junior in college or something. But anyway, I worked on it for years and years and years. And in the interest of what was getting in the way, this question you're asking, I finally realized, and I was probably in my 40s when I realized this, at least late 30s, is that the reason that improvisation was so hard was because I was so good at playing the notes on the page. And that was the thing that made it hard to improvise. It was the thing.
So your expertise in the known and that confidence in the known got in the way of your ability to accept the unknown. That's my words for it. But
That's a
does that
great way to
sound
put
true?
it. It's a great way to put it. I
So,
couldn't be okay in the unknown.
oh,
I had to know. And so even in studying and learning how to improvise, a lot of that training to teach people how to improvise, as you know, as someone who was in music school studying jazz, which I didn't do, but I tried to, I got a lot of those books and would read through them and stuff.
yeah.
And I would read a chapter and I go, oh, I know that. Oh, I get that. I know that. I know that, theory. I know that chord pattern. And then it would say, practice this in all 12 keys. And I go, yeah. and because I knew it
Intellectually, right?
intellectually. And so I was like, well, I don't, and so anyway, that's kind of gets a little bit into the weeds, but the thing that got in my way and still does sometimes is stuff that was going on up here. And that's part of the value of just the 3 foundational questions. What's happening now? Who am I now? What do I do now? And then everything else can just, take a rest.
Ooh, yeah. So, and that leads the 3 questions, right? So this idea. Okay, so I'm developing this skill constantly asking those 3 questions as you navigate reality, and you get to that point. So I have an idea of what's happening. I have a good sense of my identity, and I'm feel the sense of belonging, and I'm getting close to understanding the reality. And how do I engage with that reality, given that that no matter how much knowledge I might have, there's so much that's unpredictable, and that no matter what, I as a person, not even a group, can plan thing exactly as they're going to happen, because none of us have the crystal ball, and none of us are the almighty, the omniscient, the spirit being of the universe. And so then comes the what do I do, and what is the what that allows us to navigate. And I think that leads us into the next trio, possibly.
Well, I think that question there takes us right to the heart of what I think is the most interesting part of all of this. And I have this thing I call the 7-step tune-up, which is a way. I have these 2 tools, which one of them is I call the 5-point alignment, which is a way to assess the extent to which we are connected to our creative source energy. And so this is just a way to notice, where we are at any given point in time. If I've sat and I've played for a few minutes, I can ask myself a few questions and then sort of tell how connected I am. And right now I'm not really connected because I'm thinking about talking to you and I'm just playing a bunch of stuff with my fingers. So I'm not really connected and I'm not really engaged. And so I would say that was, like a 2 on a scale of 10 of being connected. And so from that, yeah.
Oh, and that's just a little taste of the key to this practice of having some ways to dig down into that. Okay.
Yeah.
That the 5-step.
Yeah. That process.
That process of tuning in, just knowing the process, just knowing what the 5 steps are, that is just the tip of the top of the iceberg until you get down into practicing it and spending the time. Part of the program and part of the Live Musically in 90 Days program is the daily practice that you do to get better at these different parts of again the living music. The Living Musically program, the 5 and the 7 to make the 12 tones, and the 3 parts that, again, I'm a simple guy, right? So this idea of okay, in the decision, that's improvisation. That's what we're talking about, improvisation. And as you do it, you open it up through the piano, and so there is, okay.
I don't know if I've mentioned the Holy Trinity of improv. Have I mentioned? I was
about to mention the Holy Trinity right there.
Okay.
And the Holy Trinity. Okay, I'll let you mention it since you came up with it, and I'm just kind of stealing it. But that to me,
go ahead.
Is a nice way to enter. So listen. So just and listen to yourself. Listen to what's around you. You're listening to reality, and this is in your practice. I found it in my practice. And my own practice, and listen to it, feel into that. That's tough for folks, many, but when you start, you're doing it by yourself. So you're listening to what's in your environment, you're feeling into it, and then play it out. Listen, feel, play it out. And as you become more in tune with that practice daily, it extends into the rest of your doing and decision making. So, okay, what's happening? Who am I now? What do I do now? I listen, I feel, and play it out. And those pieces come together as part of the practices. That Holy Trinity of listening deeply, intently, wholly, and practicing that listening, and then allowing that listening to integrate into you, and doing it slowly with your grace for yourself, and then engaging with the world, with your digits, with your eyes, your ears, your heart, your voice, your beings. So not only the piano in there. So the Holy Trinity.
Yeah. I've never quite been able to figure out which of those things is the hardest. To whether it's listening as a way of answering that question, what is happening now, to really listen deeply and listen really carefully. I don't know if, sometimes listening is the hardest thing, because we listen a lot of times with our heads spinning, trying to figure out what if I'm
listening to respond. I'm not listening to what you're saying. I'm listening to, you said something, I'm going to respond to you, right?
Right. It's like, oh, this is what I'm going to say next. As soon as this guy will shut up, and then I can get my right. That we do that all the time. Yeah. And even if we're by ourselves and we're listening to just whatever it is in the room, we're not really listening. A lot of times we're still thinking of stuff, we're strategizing. What do I need to do? And, our minds are just spinning all the time. And then sometimes it may be that feeling is the hardest thing to do, because sometimes the stuff that we're feeling is just so uncomfortable. We just don't want to do that. And so we self-medicate or, do something to sort of get our minds, and, we think that the way to deal with stuff is to avoid it. and then playing it out. Sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. I've often found that for me, I'm much more comfortable working and feeling like I'm being productive and doing important things than playing.
Well, and does it have to be, in a sense, to gain a practice? My cat's leaving the room right now. To get into practice, to be disciplined with it. So there are skills, there are listening skills, and as there are feeling skills, emotional skills to build, and there are, of course, the big skill that everyone talks about, the playing skill, the doing skill, and the practice, I guess, is a place where you can be sequential in it. Right. So that as you develop mastery in each of those elements of the Holy Trinity of improvisation, you can, okay, now I'm going to listen. I'm going to focus on it. I'm going to attune. I'm going to attend to that as part of the solo work. Right. And that's being in the wood. As we jazz players say, you're in the woodshed. You're going to the shed. And I'm going to play my scales. I'm going to finally figure out how to play octaves real well. In my left hand, I can't do that so well. Or I'm going to write this script in 5 different ways in this or this database query or this accounting stuff. Each of those things is solo work, right? They can happen sequentially because you can go deep into them. And I think what I receive from what you're saying about, I don't know what it is. And it's all of them all at once, isn't it? Because sometimes you're in the doing, and then as your listening skills, you're listening while you're doing, and you're feelism playing, you're play feel listening, and that's and again, this is why the flow feeling comes into it, and that you're this selflessness, timelessness, all that stuff, because of the practice and because you have spent the solo work to gain the mastery you can use to navigate uncertainty.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things that I would love to convey to the listeners that I know that you've experienced many times in this work is that it's actually always available now. Even if you've never played the piano before, even if you've never played a musical instrument before, it's possible for you to do this now. There's not a prerequisite for doing this. And sometimes I'll joke, it's like people say, well, yeah, but I don't know how to play the piano. And I'll say, well, it's actually super, super easy. You've got these buttons here, and you push them down.
And they make a sound. Crazy.
And it makes a sound. It's crazy. And it's like that's how you play the piano, is you push these buttons down. And I couldn't teach you to play the bassoon. I could not help you with the bassoon. Right. But with the piano.
And so right there, I think that's the point. Oh, I can't play piano because when I play it sounds like garbage, right? And there's a point in the process where be okay with the garbage. There's a point where to be okay with feeling into that garbage, and Go ahead. So
Well, and there is a way to sort of leap over that huge hurdle.
yeah, that
Um,
fear. Yeah.
there's a huge well, and it's legit, because who wants to sit there and sound like that all the time? It's like
Me.
I I've actually started spending a lot of time lately playing chromatically and like really listening into that. And I've been enjoying stepping into just listening to all of the kinds of gnarly harmonic possibilities. But short of that,
You,
there is a way to jump over this hurdle of playing stuff that just really doesn't sound all that pleasant. And it's what I call the 12 keys with ease. I used to call it playing the fields, but I came up with this way about 10 years ago now, so that anyone can learn how to play in any key on the piano. That takes about an hour to learn. And Ryan has learned this. You have learned this.
yeah.
And a lot of people have learned this now over the last 10 years. And it's really kind of crazy. I don't quite get why this is true, but it seems to be true, at least so far, that I'm the only person on the planet that seems to teach this.
Yeah.
It seems to be something that somehow it came to me and it hasn't come to other people yet.
Yeah, and I think I would say one really interesting thing about the 12 keys with ease is that it's kind of an unlearning. If you can come from zero, again, you don't have to know how to play piano to work with Daniel. You don't. It is, and you can get to a point where you can play music that sounds good from a traditional sense. As you and I would say, it's this diatonic Western harmony kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't have to know those terms. You don't have to know that stuff that I went to music school and Daniel did his study for. No, no, the 12 keys with ease get you there so you can navigate the piano with this sense of, oh, I have some skill and then I can practice to get there. And you don't need to know all the notes, all the note names, the harmonics, the time signatures, and all those things, but that can grow from that, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to. And at the same time, if you come in again, like you did with a formal piano training, not necessarily college, but formal training, I
Mm-hmm.
need to know I need to know this note, that note. I had to read the music,
Mm-hmm.
get to read the music and translate that into my fingers and leaving the heart and spirit out of it. And so the unlearning of that opens stuff, as well as
Mm-hmm.
the learning of the mastery basics and then to the mastery of the 12 keys. So there's so much stuff here. That the reason why we spent here for a half hour, we've gone this much into what the program is. So how do you offer what's the offering to people to how can they get into uh, the ability to navigate uncertainty with mastery?
Yeah. So I do a couple of I help people in a couple of different ways, and one is that I do one-on-one work with folks. Sometimes I work with people in pairs, and we'll do a series of one-on-one sessions, and then we'll do a series of sessions with all three of us together. And a couple of times a year, I open a coaching program, a group coaching program called Live Musically in 90 Days. And that is open now, so that's available for the next couple of weeks. We'll start this next cohort up. I think it's the 5th of August, and so we'll start that cohort, and it'll run for 3 months. And so what that is a way to learn that 12 keys with ease, so that you can start playing in an hour, and we actually start with drums, and we actually at the very beginning we start with listening, a listening practice and a listening meditation that helps people learn to really listen carefully, because that's the step one, and it's what we always go back to. So we start with that, and we step into noticing what's going on in your body. We do some drumming at the very beginning to just get used to sound making and really dive into the focus on that experience of listening carefully and feeling deeply and playing it out and just starting on the drum. And then you learn the 12 keys with ease, which makes it possible for you to play in any key on the piano with confidence and play stuff that's and that can be really beautiful, that you can really enjoy without knowing any note names or any of the typical music theory at all. You just know which 7 notes to play in any key, and then you're off and playing. So it's 90 days, it's 12 sessions, and over the course of that time, you develop this real joy of realizing that you are a musical being and you can express yourself through music.
12 sessions, 90 days. You get through the Holy Trinity and asking yourself the questions in practice with guidance from you. All sorts of resources that are available through the Vibe Tribe community and through the Vibe Tribe community is free, right? To get in the front door, right? To see what's there if you want to engage at a light level. But to really get in to do it, it's getting into the 90 days, the 90-day program.
Yeah.
And so as I said, 12 plus 1, right? From the 12 keys with these, plus the drumming and the Holy Trinity of practice. And
the fun part about it,
the simplicity of complexity there, and that it's very opening. So,
that's what I was going to say. Actually, is that the cool part about it, and the hard part about it, and the thing that can help your life the most, that seems to be the hardest to change, to shift, is actually it's actually really easy, but it's just hard to find it. It's hard to get to that place. But then in the course of this, what this does is it makes it possible for sound itself to be an ally in the process. So instead of going, well, what do I need to know to get good? Instead, you're just sitting at the piano and pushing buttons. And you're feeling yourself, and you're going, well, let's see here. What would express this feeling that I'm having? Sometimes it's like this, it's like, this is how I'm feeling, and then just sitting and playing, as if you were 3. Yeah. And then go, well, I think I'd like to play something more harmonious. And so you can come back and start doing and just play from that set of 7 notes, and then it starts to sound better. And then you're just using your own innate musicality and enjoying the moment, without having to worry about knowing a bunch of stuff.
And that experiencing, knowing the moment musically, without having to talk about it, without having to think about the words about it, without having to communicate this with yourself or anyone else, to live the moment musically, to experience what it's like to improvise and use your skills as they go. And I think that's where it comes into the bridge, crossing over into living the moment in the world outside. When you don't have a keyboard or a bass guitar or trumpet or timpani or kazoo, you can have a kazoo with you wherever. But if you are present to the moment, you know what's happening. You listen, you feel this idea of sensing, right? So it's sensing in the world around, there's words all around me. There's sounds that are talking to me in the English language or Japanese or Urdu or whatever language. But there is one language that bypasses all that. And that's the language you're talking about. That's the language that we're talking about. That's the language I think that's that key that unlocks so much in life, that kind of that narrows the gap between fear and love. My fear of being judged and this fear of being judged about what you say about speaking in public, all that stuff, that the skill of improvisation and getting used to the fear of sucking a bit less and sucking at something new, sucking less at that.
Yeah, it's like Miles. I just read this the other day. Miles Davis said, "It's not the note you play; it's the note you play after."
Oh, that's a quote.
You know, and little things like that. You know.
Yeah.
And then when you have experiences at the piano, doing something that sucks, and then you go, well, let's see here. If I do this now, and then you learn. Literally, your brain is learning a skill that makes it possible for you to remember when some other situation in life is happening that sort of sucks, and you can go, okay, well then now instead of just getting all, you know, contracted by that whatever it was, you can go, well, let's see here, what can I do now? And so it just builds in these skills for, you know, being more resilient and being more accepting of shit that happens, and going, well, let's see here, then what can I do now? You know, it's always becomes this, okay, then what can I do now?
Wow. And my cat is clawing on the door on the other side of the room. And before that,
well, what can you do now?
What can I do now? I'm going to ask you to be great. Maybe you can play for 10 seconds while I get her.
I'll play a little bit, sure.
No. Now you're going to see my things.
There we go. So let's see here. I'm going to play in what I call four. I'm going to play in 4 sharps. And for those of you who do know music theory and chords and so on, one of the values of this practice for you is that it makes it opens the gate to a lot of sonic possibilities that you might not have ever explored, because, you know, I could, it's not like I couldn't play that sound right there, but I just wouldn't normally think to, you know, I would normally think in terms of playing more standard chords. You know, it's just kind of the way we think, and the way we play is based on the frameworks that are in our heads. And so if you have a framework that doesn't involve all that structure, then it just opens up the floodgates in terms of the kinds of things that you might find yourself playing, because you wouldn't think of it otherwise. So right now I'm not thinking of chords at all. I'm just looking at those 7 notes in the key and going, well, let's see here, what wants to get played next. It just opens things up.
It's almost like having awareness of the frameworks and mental models that you have. It's kind of that other level of awareness. I think that's important to know that there are alternate possibilities. And this is what I was going to say before Sprightly started gnawing at the door, was that it's moving from sound improvisation to musical improvisation to life improvisation, and the ability to build those skills and apply those muscles, if you will, of outside this place that puts so much fear of oh my gosh, there's chaos, complexity, confusion, and that we've evolved this place where we have it, so that improvising with life is becomes a lot harder, and that, again, 90 days to unlock that place and just to shine a light on your mental model of fear and anxiety to move into this listening deeply. I'd say it's with exquisite attention, and to borrow a phrase from another place.
Yeah.
And this just this beautiful practice that I can't say enough about, and I literally can't say enough about, because we have to land this beautiful flying space sailboat. And again, it's just the offer. Do you want to say anything more specifically about the offer? The URL has been on the bottom of the screen. We'll share the URL in the descriptions of YouTube, LinkedIn, and we'll share it out all over the place. We'll restream this video multiple times as we go through towards the end of the enrollment period, and there will be many chances to enroll. So Daniel, how would you like to play us out?
Well, just with great gratitude, Ryan. I really just appreciate this opportunity so much. It's been really fun doing this work with you and witnessing your growth through this process, and I really appreciate the opportunity to get to share this with your folks out there. And yeah, my prayer in all of this is that this would be a way to bring possibility in people's lives, that things that you might not have ever thought possible, and this way of being has been such a blessing in my life. And I would just love it if we can learn how to communicate with each other and with ourselves and our deeper selves in a way that is really closer to our natural state of being, with the natural world, with each other, in a way that could really transform our experience of living on this planet. And I think music is a real bridge to that.
Amen, brother. All right. Well, if you would improvise a little bit,
Play a little bit.
I'll pop the screen up and say some words while you play.
Okay.
And many thanks to Daniel, and to all of you who've been out there watching, whenever and wherever you are. Happy now, and allow yourself to consider what it might be like to move from the mechanical to the musical, to live more musically. It only takes 90 days to make that breakthrough. Got the URL right here at the bottom of the screen. It'll be shared. DanielBarber.com/sys/main-options. Put the link in the descriptions all over the place. And it could be more beautiful. It could be more awesome than living musically. Thank you very much for the precious gift of your time and attention. Be well.